أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد، يحيي ويميت، بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه وخليله، بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة، نصح الأمة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وقرة أعيننا محمد وعلى آله وصحابته ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الكلام كتاب الله سبحانه وتعالى، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. يقول الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم وفرقانه العظيم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: الله يتوفى الأنفس حين موتها والتي لم تمت في منامها ويمسك التي قضى عليها الموت ويرسل الأخرى إلى أجل مسمى إن في ذلك الآيات لقوم يتفكرون. صدق الله العلي العظيم وصدق رسول النبي الكريم، ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Before I comment on this beautiful ayah from Surah Zumar, I would like to go back a couple of months, because last month I was traveling, I could not make it. But if you recall, we were speaking about the changes that any person can make. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave a fitrah in the heart, in the composition of His creation, that they are always inclined to the truth. كل مولود يولد على الفطرة. They are always inclining toward the truth. They know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one, and they know that the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be dominating. So Allah Azza wa Jal gave this instinct and also the empowerment to every creation, every human being, that they can make a change within themselves, within the family, within the relative, within the environment. And it does not matter if he is only one person, if he is weak, because if you recall the example that we gave, the demonstration in that commencement ceremony, that the person came with a jar full of water and he said if the last drop will make a difference. And when he colored the last drop and put it in the jar of water, the entire jar of water, the color got changed. And he said, look, even if you're by yourself, even if everyone is against you, you have the potential to make a change. And we looked at three basic pointers at that time, just to refresh my memory. Number one is to make any change, of course, after we have submitted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and after we have certified in our tawheed and the Risalah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help. And Allah Azza wa Jal made it an obligation on every single believer that he must ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help at least 17 times a day during their prayer as they are reciting Surah Fatiha. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'een. Isti'ana. And along with isti'ana goes with tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That when we have done our homework, when we have prepared ourselves, when our intention is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is very clear, then we ask the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and at the same time we depend completely on Allah Azza wa Jalla. And the beautiful example we gave from the history from Musa alayhi salam, when Musa alayhi salam was commanded by Allah Azza wa Jalla, idhab ila Fir'aun innahu tagha. Musa alayhi salam was running away from Fir'aun because he committed something that put him in the most wanted list of Fir'aun, that he has to be captured and he has to be killed. And he was running away, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, go back, idhab ila Fir'aun innahu tagha, because he has transgressed everything. So the immediate response of Musa alayhi salam, قال رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعله وزيرا من أهلي هارون أخي اشدد به أزري ويسره أمري كي نسبحك كثيرا ونذكرك كثيرا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help he was seeking right away at that time. And Allah gave him the help and the support, and he became victorious. So that is number one, isti'ana, asking Allah Azza wa Jal for support. Number two, we said that we should take advantage of any situation that comes to us. And the opportunity Allah Azza wa Jal gives to His creation, everyone will get his opportunity and his chance. And if you don't grab it, that opportunity may go away. And it actually happened even at the time of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. And there are so many examples of the companions that inshallah we'll talk about it later, but I just want to give you one of them. And that is in the time of Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, he was Amirul Mu'mineen. And he was open to everyone. Everyone will come and seek his advice, help, and he would be meeting everyone, either collectively or in groups. And people would be always in the courtyard of Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. So it so happened that one time two groups came. In one group there was Bilal, Suhaib al-Rumi, and Salman al-Farisi radiallahu anhum ajma'in. And the other group, it was Abu Sufyan and Suhail al-Amr. Suhail al-Amr, if you don't know him, we need to look at Surah Hudaybiyah. He was a very adamant against Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he was one of the fathers who tortured his own children because they accepted Islam, Abdullah and Abu Jandal. But later on, both Abu Sufyan and Abu Sufyan, he wanted to eliminate Islam, especially in the time of Battle of Ahzab. But both of them accepted Islam. So they went also to see Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, and both the groups were there. And Umar al-Khattab asked Bilal radiallahu anhu and his group to come first to talk to him. And Abu Sufyan got upset. He said to Suhail, look at Umar al-Khattab. We are the chief of Quraysh, and he is asking the slaves to go first and meet with him? That is not fair. Abu Sufyan, even after accepting Islam, he still had this in his mind. And we know it from his wife, when his wife came to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and complained that Abu Sufyan is not supporting her. So she was told that you take whatever you need to run your family. So Suhail Amru, he had more vision. He said, Abu Sufyan, I am not worried about being delayed in seeing Amir al-Mu'mineen. I am not worried if he says, go back. But what I am worried about is if on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala delays us to enter Jannah. If on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prevents us to enter Jannah. Because Islam came to them and to us all at the same time. And they were the first ones to grab the opportunity. And me and you, we fought against Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and we came late. So I'm not worried about that situation, but I'm worried about the day of Jannah. So this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even in the Quran, He says, لا يستوي منكم من أنفق من قبل الفتح وقاتل أولئك أعظم درجة من الذين أنفقوا من بعد وقاتلوا وكلا وعد الله الحسنى. They're not the same. But anyway, all of them are radiallahu anhum wa radu anhu. So the opportunity is something when it comes, we need to grab it. And the other one we said that, look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will look at any excuse that is valid that we can give to Allah Azza wa Jal on the day of judgment, so that we can prevent fire to touch us. And the great example was from the Bani Israel, and there were 3 groups of people, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbid for them to fish on Sabbath, Yawm al-Sabt. But the first group, they bypassed this rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They will put the bait on Friday and get the fish after sunset Saturday, so they will bypass Saturday as if they are walking with the command of Allah Azza wa Jalla. So the second group, they told them, don't do that. This is our advice. You are actually in violation of the command of Allah Azza wa Jalla. And then there was this third group who told the second one that, why do you even advise them? Don't advise them. What did they say? They said, مَعَذِرَةً إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. We do it so that we can have an excuse in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ma'adira, that, oh Allah, given our capacity, we advise them. We did our best. وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. And maybe they will take our advice. So these are the 3 pointers that we talked about. But today this ayah, Allah يَتَوَفَّى الْأَنفُسِ حِينَ مَوْتِهَا وَالَّتِي لَمْ تَمُتْ فِي مَنَامِهَا. That Allah Azza wa Jalla takes the soul of the people حِينَ مَوْتِهَا, during the time of their death. وَالَّتِي لَمْ تَمُتْ فِي مَنَامِهَا. And those who do not die, Allah Azza wa Jalla takes their soul في منامها while they are asleep, while they are sleeping. وَيُمْسِكُ الَّتِي قَضَى عَلَيْهَا الْمَوْتِ. And Allah keeps those souls away upon whom death has been decreed. The souls do not go back. وَيُرْسِلُ الْأُخْرَى. But the other ones, Allah sends the soul back to them. إِلَىٰ أَجَلٍ مُسَمَّى. Until that time when death is decreed. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Indeed, in it there is something for the people to ponder. There are very deep implication of this ayah. One is, there is a challenge from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from Adam alayhi salam until the day of judgment, if they can define the most common thing in the life of a human being, which is sleep. 1/3 of our life goes in sleep, 8 hours a day, or even more, sometimes once or twice. And if you call the greatest scientists of today, if you call the highest Nobel Prize winner of today, if you call the greatest physicist of today, if you call the greatest chemist of today, the greatest doctor of today, they will never be able to define what sleep is based on their study, based on their equation, based on their calculation, until they submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They study the Quran, they read the Quran, they go to Surah Zumar, they look at ayah number 42, they ponder on in this ayah, then they will understand that sleep is nothing but separation between soul and body. How can science define soul? Cannot. So that is the challenge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But on the other hand, this ayah tells you and me how much close we are to our death. And every day, every night, we are experiencing some kind of separation between our soul and our body. And it is only by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the soul is returned back to us until some time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us chance after chance after chance to go back to Him, to make tawbah, to make istighfar, and mend our ways of life. Based on this death, there are several ayat in the Quran. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions in 3 places the same portion of the ayah. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ, every single soul, ذَائِقَةُ, they will taste maut, death. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala beautifully describes as tasting, meaning the ultimate result of death is yet to come. A believer, for him, when death comes and he tastes death, it will be sweet, it will be attractive, it will be from the malaika of rahmah, and he will be longing to go with the malaika to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he will be eager to tell his family, let me go and tell them how beautiful the death is for me. But that is only the beginning, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will enlarge his grave, and the grave will be filled up with perfume of Jannah, and he will be fed, and he will be meeting his families who are the believers. And at the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resurrect him with the believers, and he will be given a chance to go to the house of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to bring from the water, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will admit him in Jannah, and he will be able to see Allah Azza wa Jalla. On the other hand, the people who are kuffar, مَا سَلَكَكُمْ فِي سَقَرٍ. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, what have brought you to this saqar? Saqar is what? It is hellfire. مَا سَلَقَكُمْ فِي سَقَرٍ قَالُوا لَمْ نَكُ مِنَ الْمُصَلِّينَ وَلَمْ نَكُ نُطْعِمُ الْمِسْكِينَ وَكُنَّا نَخُوضُ مَعَ الْخَائِضِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be asked, what brought you to this dreadful punishment? We were not among the people who used to pray. لَمْ نَكُ مِنَ الْمُصَلِّينَ وَلَمْ نَكُ نُطْعِمُ الْمِسْكِينَ. We didn't feed the poor. وَكُنَّا نَخُوضُ مَعَ الْخَائِضِينَ. We spend our time talking and discussing of useless matters. Did not benefit anything, except that it came against us. وَكُنَّا نُكَذِّبُ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ. And so in consequence, we denied hereafter. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ ثُمَّ إِلَيْنَا تُرْجَعُونَ كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ وَنَبْلُوكُمْ بِالشَّرِّ وَالْخَيْرِ فِتْنَةً وَإِلَيْنَا تُرْجَعُونَ. كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, every single soul will taste death, and everyone will be brought back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَمَنْ زُحْزِحَ عَنِ النَّارِ وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةَ فَقَدْ فَازَ. Whoever is pushed away from nar, وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةَ, then it is his victory. فَقَدْ فَازَ. وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. So this person, this Arabi, he came to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He asked, Ya Rasulullah, ansihni wa awjiz, or allimni wa awjiz. Give me an advice And O Prophet of Allah, make it concise, make it short. Subhanallah, as we said, there are Sahaba and there are Sahaba. There are Sahabas who would like to hang in with the Prophet ﷺ 24/7. Rabi ibn Ka'ab radiallahu anh, he said, I used to sleep outside the courtyards of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, lest at night he would wake up and he would need something, I will be the first one to serve him. And Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh, look at his level. Rasul used to have 3 jars or pots of water. They looked the same and they had the same quantity of water beside his sleeping area. One was for his drinking, one was for his wudu, and one was for when he came back from the call of nature. From outside, you cannot separate them. Alayhi salatu wasalam came out of the call of nature. He didn't have this jar with him. When Ibn Abbas noticed, he picked up one of those 3 and gave it to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nabi sallallahu looked at it and said, this is the correct one. This was the observation of Ibn Abbas. He knew exactly which jar belongs to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam right now to wash himself up after the call of nature. Alayhi salatu wasallam, at that point, if you look at it, at that time, he made a special dua for Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. And that's why he became one of the faqih of the deen. But this person, he said, I'll just make it short. I can't, I don't have time maybe. Or maybe make it easy for me, so that I can perform what you are saying. So alayhi salatu wasalam gave him 3 advice. Inshallah, we'll continue on this 3 advice. The first one, إِذَا قُمْتَ فِي صَلَاتِكَ فَصَلِّ صَلَاةً وَارْدِعْ. When you stand in prayer, pray as if it is your last prayer. وَلَا تَكَلَّمْ بِكَلَامٍ تَعْتَذِرُ مِنْهُ غَدًا. Don't say anything that you have to apologize for it tomorrow. وَأَجْمَعِ الْيَأْسِ عَمَّا فِي أَيْدِ النَّاسِ. And don't have any expectation of what other people possess. What other people have, don't envy, don't expect those that it belong to you. 3 advices. So look at the first one. إِذَا قُمْتَ فِي صَلَاتِكَ فَصَلِّ صَلَاةً وَارْدِعْ. When you stand in prayer, when we stand in prayer, that's the most important part of our deen, by the way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not require us to fast every day. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not require us to go to Hajj every year. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not require us to make sadaqah every single day. Zakah every single day. You can make it on one time of the year. You're done. Except for prayer. As a ritual. Of course, as our etiquette, as our behavior, as our interaction, as our goodness, it has to be every single time. But that is also, these characters of good etiquette, good morals, they're also shared by the disbelievers. They have some of them very good morals, they have some of them very good characters. But what they don't have is a prayer. So, prayer is what differentiates us from the kuffar. And this is why when we stand in prayer, the shaitan becomes extremely active so that he can distract us from remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is giving a prescription that take this prescription. إِذَا قُمْتَ فِي صَلَاتِكَ. When you stand in prayer, فَصَلِّ صَلَاةً وَارْدِعْ. Think there's no life after that. Think this is the last one, after that you are going to die. What is our stand would be? What would be our heart? Where would be our heart in terms of communication with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if we know this is the last deed we are doing? How much focus we are going to make in our prayer? And it is not only prayer, by the way. If we take every single action that we do, because we don't know the future, I don't know what will happen a minute later in my life. If we take every single moment as the last thing we are doing, how much better we want to do. When we leave our home, how did we leave our spouses? Did we leave our spouses saying Salamu Alaikum and with a smile? Did we leave our children with a smile and with a hug? Because you never know what will happen to you. It may be the last time. So at every time, whatever we do, whoever we mix with, whoever we interact with, leave with the best possible way from that person. There is no hatred, there is no envy, except for love, except for communication in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Uthman ibn al-As radiallahu anhu, he was assigned as an imam, as you know, in Al-Ta'if by Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So as he was an imam, he stood in prayer, this waswasa always used to come to his mind. He did different things. And you know, most of the time when we are in prayer, what I am going to do after prayer is the one that takes our mind away. What am I going to do after prayer? Oh, I have to go and eat. I have an appointment with this. I have a meeting with my boss. I have to go out. All of these things. This is why Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, think there's no life after prayer. So all of these things will be cancelled out if we can only focus like that when we stand in prayer. If we can bring our thoughts like that when we stand in prayer, there's no life. This is the last time. When Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, he put one of the companions, I'm not sure, Zubayr, I don't remember the name, and he would be killed, or maybe Tabi'een at that time. He would be killed, and he said, I need to get 2 rak'ah before you kill me. And you know Hajjaj bin Yusuf, you know how he was. So he did his 2 rak'ah of prayer very fast. Usually, when you know it is your last thing, you would try to concentrate and put a lot of time in it. And he said to Hajjaj, you know the reason I would love to extend my prayer, because I know this is my last prayer of communication in the dunya with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the reason I did it fast is because he will think I'm worried, I'm afraid about death. That's the only reason I did it fast. Otherwise, I would be spending time with my Lord. You know, subhanAllah, in this life, you don't need any appointment with Allah Azza wa Jalla to talk to Him. You don't need a special time to talk to Him. When you're in Salah, and inshallah we'll expand on this next time to give myself first some pointers that can give us a better quality Salah when we do it. But you don't need any appointment with Allah Azza wa Jalla. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's permission for every single of His creation is there always. If you want to pray to Allah, stand up and pray. If you want to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, stand up and make dua. The only exception happens is that when we die. At that time, no one speaks except whoever Allah Azza wa Jalla gives permission. That permission is extremely restricted, and no one knows who will be given that permission. But in this life, the permission is constant. Every single time, you and I can communicate with Allah Azza wa Jalla. And if we know that this is our last communication, we will be putting our heart and our mind and our soul and our body for Allah Azza wa Jalla, regardless of whatever we are doing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this prayer as pleasing as it used to be at the time of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and his companions, because their focus was the hereafter. When Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, as Amir al-Mu'mineen, he visited Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah radiallahu anhu in his house, and he found nothing in his house, not even a bed, no furniture, a water pot and some dry barley. And he was shocked, and he said, Abu Ubaidah, I am your guest, so honor me, feed me something. So he gave him dry bread, and Umar Khattab started crying. And Abu Ubaidah said, O Amirul Mu'mineen, what is this dunya except for a few days, and we are going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Umar Khattab said, O Abu Ubaidah, today you have proven that every one of us is deceived by this dunya except for you. SubhanAllah. And we know how Umar ibn Khattab used to live. He would be living at the bottom level. He had nothing himself. He would be walking the streets of Medina in barefoot. He would be giving everything to his citizens. Yes, this is the humility. This is the humbleness of Umar ibn Khattab. Oh Abu Ubaidah, today you have proven that we are all for the dunya except for you. They had this vision. That's why for them to focus in prayer, to be concentrating in prayer, that's why when Umar ibn Khattab was stabbed, radiallahu anhu, he wanted to finish his prayer. That was what was in his mind. And when he woke up from the shock of being stabbed and he got consciousness, he said, did my people finish the prayer? اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا وأخطأنا. ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا. ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به. واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. I request myself and all of you, inshallah, to pray for our people in Gaza. Those are the people as an example that when they stand for prayer, they realize it could be the last prayer. Because the bombing and the shelling and the killing and the invasion by the Zionists, those are the people of faith. Jazakumullah khair wa salam alaykum.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله. استقيموا اعتدلوا يرحمني وإياكم الله. رحم الله امرأ ساوى نفسه. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. وإذ قال إبراهيم رب اجعل هذا البلد آمنا واجنبني وبني أن نعبد أضللن كثيرا من الناس فمن تبعني فإنه مني ومن عصاني فإنك غفور رحيم ربنا إني أسكنت من ذريتي بواد غير ذي زرع عند بيتك المحرم ربنا ليقيموا الصلاة فاجعل أفئدة من الناس تهوي إليهم وارزقهم من الثمرات لعلهم يشكرون الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين ربنا إنك تعلم ما نخفي وما نعلن وما يخفى على الله من شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء الحمد لله الذي وهب لي على الكبر إسماعيل وإسحاق إن ربي لسميع الدعاء رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ربنا وتقبل دعاء ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب الله أكبر سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Brothers, inshallah, make dua for brother Wasim Sultan.